I bought this repossessed Bugatti Veyron with supposedly a broken gearbox. Nothing happened.
A Saudi prince reportedly shocked the automotive world after privately approaching Mat Armstrong with an unbelievable proposal worth nearly $20 million. Instead of contacting the official factories behind some of the world's most expensive hypercars, the royal collector allegedly turned toward a YouTube mechanic working from an industrial workshop in the United Kingdom. That single decision instantly created controversy across the luxury car community because the damaged vehicles involved were not ordinary supercars. According to the story, the prince's collection included a burned Bugatti Chiron Supersport 300 Plus, a severely water-damaged Ferrari SF90 Straight Ale, and a heavily compromised Porsche 918 Spyder, alongside several other limited production hypercars. Most manufacturers had either refused to repair the vehicles or proposed solutions so expensive and restrictive that the prince reportedly viewed them as unacceptable. Rather than accepting defeat, he allegedly decided to trust an independent rebuilder famous for rescuing cars others considered impossible to save. The situation became even more fascinating because Mat Armstrong was already gaining attention for challenging factory limitations surrounding modern performance cars. His rebuild videos had attracted millions of viewers online by documenting destroyed Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens, and other exotic vehicles being brought back to life through creativity, persistence, and unconventional engineering methods. To many fans, he represented the modern independent builder fighting against a system designed to keep repairs locked behind corporate control. The prince supposedly recognized that reputation immediately. According to the narrative, he had spent months watching Mat's rebuild projects before making contact. He allegedly saw someone willing to take risks that official dealerships and manufacturers would never attempt publicly. That idea became the emotional foundation of the entire story. It was no longer simply about repairing damaged cars. It became a battle between independent engineering freedom and the strict control systems dominating the modern hypercar industry. The script presents a prince as a wealthy collector who had grown frustrated with how manufacturers handled catastrophic vehicle damage. Modern hypercars are no longer purely mechanical machines. They are heavily software-controlled systems packed with encrypted electronics, factory-restricted diagnostics, and proprietary hardware. Many owners reportedly discover that even after spending millions, manufacturers still maintain enormous influence over repairs, modifications, and certification approvals. In some cases, brands can allegedly blacklist vehicles, restrict software access, deny part sales, or refuse certification for independently repaired cars. The prince reportedly experienced those frustrations firsthand after several of his damaged vehicles were examined by factory representatives. Instead of practical repair pathways, he allegedly received buyback offers, replacement suggestions, or warnings declaring the vehicles permanently compromised. That response appears to have pushed him toward an entirely different strategy. Rather than surrendering control of the cars back to the factories, he supposedly wanted someone capable of rebuilding them outside traditional corporate systems. That is where Mat Armstrong entered the picture. The script carefully frames him not only as a mechanic, but as a symbol of resistance against the increasingly closed ecosystem surrounding modern hypercars. His workshop becomes portrayed almost like a battlefield where damaged multi-million-dollar machines are given a second chance despite factory opposition. The opening of the story works effectively because it combines royal wealth, destroyed hypercars, engineering mystery, and rebellion against powerful automotive corporations all within the first few minutes. Viewers immediately begin asking questions. Why would a Saudi prince trust a YouTuber instead of the original manufacturers? What damage was so severe that companies wanted the cars removed permanently? And most importantly, could an independent garage truly succeed where billion-dollar automotive brands refuse to continue? Those unanswered questions create powerful curiosity that drives the entire narrative forward, while also turning the rebuild project into something much larger than ordinary automotive content. The most shocking part of the Saudi prince's proposal was not simply the money involved, but the condition attached to it. According to the story, the royal collector specifically wanted the rebuilds completed without relying on official factory repair programs from Bugatti, Ferrari, or Porsche. That detail transformed the project from an expensive restoration into a direct challenge against the modern hypercar industry itself. The alleged message sent to Mat Armstrong reportedly contained only a few words, yet those words carried enormous meaning. 6 cars, 20 million, no factories. The simplicity of the message made it feel even more dramatic because it implied years of frustration hidden behind a single demand. The prince supposedly no longer trusted the manufacturers that originally built the cars. Instead, he wanted an independent rebuilder capable of bypassing the restrictions, delays, and massive repair costs that had already turned the damaged vehicles into corporate nightmares. According to the narrative, the disaster began several months earlier after a catastrophic incident involving one of the prince's private storage facilities. A fire reportedly erupted inside the structure before an automated suppression system flooded sections of the building in an attempt to contain the flames. By the time emergency crews stabilized the situation, multiple hypercars had suffered devastating combinations of heat, smoke, water, and chemical damage. For ordinary vehicles, the losses would already have been enormous, but these were not ordinary cars. They were some of the rarest and most technologically advanced machines ever produced. The Bugatti Chiron Supersport 300 Plus allegedly emerged from the disaster with severe fire damage concentrated around the rear engine bay. Carbon fiber body panels had melted away while portions of the wiring harness fused together under extreme temperatures. Nearby sat the Ferrari SF90 Stradale, which reportedly suffered catastrophic water exposure after floodwater reached the vehicle's sensitive hybrid systems and electronic modules. The Porsche 918 Spyder faced a completely different problem after impact damage reportedly compromised part of its carbon fiber structure. According to the story, official factory evaluations quickly turned pessimistic. Bugatti allegedly warned that severe fire exposure had compromised critical identification and structural elements surrounding the Chiron. Ferrari reportedly proposed buying back the SF90 for a fraction of its original value, while requiring strict confidentiality agreements connected to the car's future. Porsche supposedly declared the 918 beyond economic repair and suggested replacement rather than restoration. For the prince, these responses represented more than simple business decisions. The script portrays them as examples of how modern hypercar manufacturers maintain extraordinary levels of control over vehicles even after ownership transfers to wealthy clients. That idea becomes one of the central themes throughout the story. Modern exotic cars are presented almost like software-controlled ecosystems rather than traditional automobiles. Manufacturers allegedly decide which repairs are approved, which components can be replaced, which software functions remain active, and whether certain cars deserve continued factory support at all. The prince reportedly viewed that level of control as unacceptable after already investing millions into the vehicles themselves. Instead of accepting factory restrictions, he allegedly searched for someone willing to attempt the impossible outside official channels. Mat Armstrong's online reputation made him the perfect candidate for that role. His previous rebuilds had already shown audiences that independent workshops could sometimes accomplish repairs manufacturers considered impractical or commercially undesirable. The prince supposedly saw an opportunity not only to save his damaged collection, but also to prove that the traditional hypercar repair system could be challenged successfully. That possibility created enormous tension inside the story, because the project was no longer purely about rebuilding expensive cars. It became a symbolic fight over ownership, engineering freedom, and the growing power manufacturers hold over the machines they sell. Every destroyed hypercar arriving at Mat Armstrong's workshop represented another test of whether independent builders could truly compete against billion-dollar automotive corporations controlling some of the world's most advanced vehicles. When the first shipment finally arrived at Mat Armstrong's workshop, everyone inside immediately realized the Saudi prince's project was far more serious than anyone originally imagined. The massive reinforced crate carrying the damaged Bugatti Chiron Supersport 300 Plus reportedly weighed several tons and required specialized equipment simply to unload safely. Even before the container fully opened, the smell of burned carbon fiber, melted wiring insulation, and chemical residue filled the industrial unit. According to the story, the hypercar inside barely resembled a machine that once represented the absolute peak of automotive engineering. The rear section had suffered catastrophic fire damage. Body panels were missing entirely. Sections of the engine bay appeared melted together, and the once beautiful W16 powertrain looked more like industrial scrap than a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. Most collectors would have considered the vehicle permanently destroyed the moment they saw it. That visual shock became one of the most powerful moments in the narrative because it immediately showed viewers the scale of the challenge facing Mat Armstrong and his team. The script carefully described the Bugatti almost like a fallen monument, emphasizing how something designed to symbolize perfection had been reduced to a burned shell by a single disaster. According to the story, factory representatives had already made their position clear before the car even reached the United Kingdom. Official repair pathways allegedly involved replacing huge portions of the vehicle entirely, including structural components and major drivetrain systems, with costs potentially reaching several $1,000,000. More importantly, the manufacturer reportedly maintained the authority to refuse certification or future support if certain damage thresholds had been exceeded. That detail reinforced a larger theme running throughout the project. Even owners capable of spending millions could still find themselves powerless once manufacturers decided a vehicle no longer fit within factory standards. Instead of following traditional procedures, Mat Armstrong reportedly proposed something radically different. Rather than scrapping major sections immediately, he allegedly wanted to analyze every damaged component individually before deciding what could realistically be repaired, restored, or recreated independently. According to the script, the carbon fiber monocoque would undergo advanced structural scanning to determine whether the heat damage had compromised its integrity completely or only affected localized sections. The engine itself presented an even larger challenge. Official replacement options from Bugatti were allegedly impossible because manufacturers rarely sell complete hypercar engines freely to independent workshops. That restriction forced Mat's team to explore alternative solutions involving donor components, custom fabrication, and specialized engineering support from suppliers across Europe and the Middle East. The story presents this phase almost like an underground operation, assembling forbidden technology outside factory supervision. Every solution required creativity because the normal repair network allegedly remained closed to them. Yet that struggle also became part of the project's appeal. Viewers watching the rebuild would not simply witness expensive parts being replaced through dealership channels. They would see independent builders attempting to outthink systems specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of repair from happening. The script also uses the Bugatti project to explore how modern hypercars have evolved beyond traditional mechanical machines. The Chiron is described not only as a car but as a rolling computer network combining advanced software, encrypted electronics, aerospace-grade materials, and highly proprietary engineering systems. That complexity explains why manufacturers maintain such strict control over repairs. One incorrect sensor value, software mismatch, or calibration issue can allegedly disable critical vehicle functions entirely. According to the narrative, this dependence on factory approval has slowly created an industry where ownership becomes conditional rather than absolute. The Saudi prince reportedly hated that idea. After investing fortunes into his collection, he supposedly refused to accept that damaged vehicles could only survive if manufacturers allowed them to. That frustration explains why the Bugatti rebuild carried symbolic importance beyond financial value alone. If Mat Armstrong could successfully bring the destroyed Chiron back to life outside factory channels, it would prove that independent engineering still had power even against some of the world's most exclusive automotive brands. That possibility turned the burned Bugatti from a simple repair project into the centerpiece of a much larger battle over control, exclusivity, and the future high-end automotive rebuilding itself. While the burned Bugatti Chiron represented violent destruction caused by fire and heat, the Saudi prince's damaged Ferrari SF90 Stradale introduced an entirely different kind of nightmare for Mat Armstrong and his team. According to the story, the Ferrari looked almost untouched from the outside when the crate first opened. The paint still reflected light beautifully. The carbon fiber details remained intact, and the aggressive body lines continued to give the impression of a perfectly functioning hypercar. But beneath that calm exterior, the vehicle had reportedly suffered one of the most dangerous forms of damage modern hybrid supercars can experience. Saltwater contamination had quietly spread throughout the entire electrical system after flooding reached the lower sections of the car during the storage facility disaster. Unlike fire damage, which reveals itself immediately through burned surfaces and destroyed components, corrosion works slowly and invisibly. The script emphasizes that hidden danger repeatedly because it transforms a Ferrari into something far more terrifying than a visibly destroyed vehicle. According to the narrative, salt water had entered connectors, sensors, control modules, battery compartments, and microscopic gaps hidden deep inside the hybrid system. Modern hypercars like the SF90 depend on incredibly sensitive electronics, communicating constantly through high-speed data networks. Even tiny levels of corrosion can create electrical resistance changes capable of disabling safety systems, triggering fault codes, or permanently damaging expensive components. Ferrari's official repair protocol for severe water exposure was reportedly extreme, but understandable. The manufacturer allegedly required replacement of almost every major electrical and hybrid component connected to the vehicle, including the high-voltage battery system, control units, electric motors, wiring sections, and numerous electronic modules spread across the chassis. According to the story, the total repair estimate quickly climbed into hundreds of thousands of dollars before labor costs and transportation expenses were even fully calculated. Yet the financial side was only part of the problem. The prince allegedly feared that once the car entered official factory channels, Ferrari could potentially refuse future certification or support because of aftermarket modifications already installed on the vehicle before the disaster occurred. The script presents this issue as another example of how manufacturers maintain extraordinary control over modern hypercars long after purchase. Owners may technically possess the cars, but software systems, warranty restrictions, and factory policies allegedly continue governing what repairs or modifications remain acceptable. That frustration supposedly pushed the prince even further toward independent rebuilding solutions. According to the narrative, Mat Armstrong approached the SF90 differently from how Ferrari itself would likely handle the repair. Rather than automatically replacing every affected component with factory-supplied systems, he reportedly planned to disassemble the vehicle completely and evaluate which modules could realistically be restored, rebuilt, or replaced through alternative engineering methods. The biggest challenge centered around the hybrid battery pack, which allegedly suffered severe contamination inside its internal cells. According to the script, the original battery had effectively become unusable after exposure to corrosive moisture. Instead of abandoning the project, Mat reportedly contacted a specialized battery engineer experienced with custom electric racing systems. That partnership introduced one of the story's most controversial technical themes, involving communication between independent hardware and factory software. Modern hypercars rely heavily on encrypted electronic communication between control systems. If certain modules fail authentication checks or send unexpected signals, the vehicle may refuse to operate entirely. According to the narrative, independent engineers explored ways to create replacement systems capable of communicating with Ferrari's existing electronics without directly copying proprietary software. The script frames this process almost like navigating a legal gray area separating engineering compatibility from software infringement. Whether completely realistic or partially dramatized, the concept adds enormous tension because it suggests that rebuilding modern hypercars now involves battling digital restrictions as much as repairing physical damage. The Ferrari section also works effectively because it contrasts sharply with the Bugatti rebuild. The Chiron fought Mat Armstrong openly through visible destruction and catastrophic fire damage. The SF90 fought invisibly through corrosion, software dependency, and electrical complexity